Let's get him in. Our friend Kyle Rudolph, obviously the majority of his career with the Vikings, teammate with Kirk Cousins a few years ago. Let's talk it out here on Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Hey, Kyle, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, Mark. How are you?
We are doing fantastic. We're sitting here talking out the Christian McCaffrey situation and would love your perspective as somebody who's been through injuries and in an NFL locker room. What would you do tonight if you were Christian and the 49ers?
Well, if I was Christian, from the player's perspective, you do everything you can to play each and every week. You get 17 opportunities a year. I always explain to people the worst part of our industry and the worst part about our game is missing action, being injured, not being able to be out there with your teammates. And when you have to watch from the sideline, it's 1 week out of the year, 2 weeks out of the year, 3 weeks out of the year, how many games you miss that, hey, those are opportunities that you're not going to get back. So that's the biggest thing that in my mind would be killing me about not being able to be out there. So that's why he's playing. We talked about the 49ers perspective a little bit last night on our show. And, certainly the 49ers are at their best when Christian McCaffrey is healthy and gives them the best opportunity to win when he can go out there and be himself and not worry about a strained oblique or something that may be bothering him. So, I could see why there would be hesitation from the team. Hey, look, we don't need you right now in the middle of October. We want you as healthy as possible going down the stretch. But, there's also been times throughout the course of my career, one of the coaches we've talked about a lot, Kevin Stefanski, Kevin was my position coach and then offensive coordinator for a little bit. And Kevin used to hate when I would play more than 55 plays a game. So for me, the majority of my career, first, second, third down, not coming off the field, I'm out there every play playing, upwards of 95, 98% of the snaps because I just wanted to be in the game every play because you want to help your team win. And, as I got older, as the season got longer, you added another game, he would look at kind of the full year from a perspective of someone that's not the player. And he'd be like, look, if you play 55 plays a game, you'll feel your best in December. You'll be playing your best football late in the year. And at the time, you get taken out for a couple of plays on a drive and you're like, dude, like, what are you doing? Why, I'm fine. What's the difference? 55, 65 plays. It doesn't matter. But then when you really add up all of those plays over the course of 17 weeks, it's a lot of additional hits and plays, and I'm not a running back carrying the ball 30 times or getting the ball 30 times. So, certainly I see both sides. I've been on both sides, and I'm not surprised to see the reports that, he's going to go out there and play tonight.
He's going to play, and I'm wondering if part of this isn't motivated by the fact that Deebo Samuel's not out there. You as a former football player, Kyle, do you allow yourself to have these decisions be influenced by who else may be out around you?
Well, I think, Mark made the point earlier that Christian McCaffrey's playing because he wants to go out there and try to help his team win, a big road game in the NFC. And, we would always talk about, kind of your first goal of the season is to win your division. And typically, in order to win the division and get the playoffs, you got to win at least 10 games. So it was always, hey, let's get to 10 wins. Let's get to 10 wins. And then the second thing was, you got to beat your NFC opponents because those are the teams that you will be competing with or possibly in tiebreakers for. Certainly the Vikings sitting at the record that they're sitting at right now, that's probably not the conversation, but you just never know what can happen throughout the course of the season. So you always want to go out and take care of business against certainly your division opponents, but then your conference opponents as well. So, I see it as him wanting to just go out there and play regardless who's out there. Certainly his life would be a lot easier if Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel were both out there playing. So I don't necessarily feel like it's maybe something where he feels like he has to pick up the slack. It's just more so, hey, we got to go win this big game on Monday Night Football, and I feel good enough to go play. I practiced a little bit this week. Trust me, and, let me go do my thing.
Kyle Rudolph joining us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Okay, Kyle, you were teammates with Kirk Cousins late last week. We had an interesting conversation, I thought, with regard to where 49er fans kind of sat with the idea of comparing Brock Purdy to Kirk Cousins. Let's start with this. Do you feel like the national discussion around Kirk Cousins through the years has been fair? Has it been accurate? What do you think?
I believe I've maybe mentioned this on our show, but I've certainly mentioned it when asked this question. And, ultimately they're unfair, but it's not just Kirk. All of these quarterbacks across the league get way more criticism and, unfair expectations because they're the quarterback. And then the opposite is also true. They get way more credit than they probably deserve when they win games because there are 10 other guys on the field. And, certainly there's quarterbacks in the NFL that make those guys around them better. And then I think Kirk has proven that over, the last 6 years in Minnesota. You look at what that roster looked like in 2018 when he got there and what that roster looks like now. A lot more has been placed upon him to really carry that team. And why is that? Well, it's because he's making the money that he's making. Therefore, that cash has to come from somewhere. And ultimately, it's usually from other veteran players on the team who can no longer be there. So I think the criticism is unfair. He's a guy that goes out there and, consistently plays at the top of the quarterback position year in and year out. But those guys, the quarterbacks are measured by one thing and one thing only, and that's wins in January and February. And I've said it that he will continue to be criticized, whether it's unfairly or not, until he gets over that hump and, goes and ultimately plays in the big one and wins the big one.
Yeah, Brock Purdy with more playoff wins than Kirk Cousins at this hour, last I checked. What should Niners fans be most concerned about, Kyle, in terms of Minnesota's weapons without Justin Jefferson on the field?
Well, Justin's a player that, in my opinion, he is the best wide receiver in football. And to think that somebody else on that offense is going to be able to make up for Justin's absence isn't going to happen. But what they have to do is they have to find a group of people on that offense who are going to be able to, maybe divide the touches up. But really the biggest impact that he has on opposing defenses is just the attention that he requires on every single play. It's not just the corner who's covering him. It's the safety on that side of the field. It's usually the linebacker that's in that zone as well. Everybody knows where 18 is on every single play. And when he's not out there, they can kind of relax a little bit. You're not on edge every single play trying to figure out where number 18 is, which allows you to focus on every other player on the offense.
Kyle Rudolph with us, longtime member of the Minnesota Vikings, joining us here, Willard and Dibs. What if we just sort of simplify this one about this one tonight, Kyle? You know who's in and who's out. No Debo, no Trent, no Justin Jefferson on the other side. What do you think? What do you think this one's going to look like for these two teams?
Well, I think there's a guy in Minnesota who has been playing phenomenal all year. A guy who's kind of been there for a long time, and Danielle Hunter. I think Danielle is going to have to play a huge part tonight, especially with Trent being down and having a backup left tackle in the game. If the Vikings have any chance at all, it's going to be because Danielle is a guy who wrecks the game. It gives them and Brian Flores the opportunity to make things challenging on a young quarterback. It's a system that I've played against a lot. And, if you're Brock Purdy and you can sit back there and see things clearly and make decisions, there's a lot of holes in that defense and there's a lot of big plays to be had. But if you're worried about the cover zero pressure and, Danielle Hunter coming off the edge and getting sacks, it doesn't give you as much time to find those holes. So, I think that'll be the biggest thing for the Vikings is putting pressure on the quarterback to allow all their exotic pressures. And then, when they drop out and only rush three, he sits back there and holds the football. So I think the Vikings defense will be a huge part of tonight. And then on the flip side for the Niners, it's, especially Christian out there, they have to run the football. It's a Vikings defense that has not been great against the run. We talked about Philly when they ran it 13 times in a row against the Vikings for a touchdown. When you're able to run the football against that defense, it really makes them get away from a lot of the exotic looks that they like to get to and what makes it really tough on a quarterback. So running the football will be key for the Niners.
And Minnesota blitzes more than any other team in the NFL, so they obviously want to keep the Niners in third and long. Kyle, what's it like playing in these primetime, all eyes on you spots on a Monday night game?
Well, it seems like the game takes forever to get here. I mean, you think about like everybody else has already played over 24 hours ago, especially playing in the central time zone. It's like, man, we could have been yesterday at noon. I'd been on the couch at 4:30 watching the afternoon games. And then you sit around the hotel all day today, and you just can't wait for the ball to kick off and get out there and play. And it is a lot of fun playing on Monday night because you are the only thing on television. Everybody across the league, everybody across the country is watching you play. And for me personally, I remember growing up, it was always like a special treat for me to, be able to stay up and watch Monday Night Football on a school night. So I always love playing on Monday Night Football, and it's a ton of fun. It's a great environment, and it's, like I said, you're just dying for kickoff because it seems like you have to wait forever to play.
Kyle Rudolph with us, and Kyle, while you were talking, I did actually go read a little bit about the origins of National Tight Ends Day. It started 5 years ago, and it was started by George Kittle, so you were still in the league, and he tried to create this whole, kind of like tight end fraternity. Did you join that fraternity? How have you celebrated National Tight Ends Day through the years?
Yeah, I mean, I remember like some of the big things that jump out to me. I know a couple of the National Tight End Day weekends we played on Thursday night, and I was like, what the heck? Like, it's Thursday, National Tight End Day is Sunday, but I'm not really playing on Sunday. So I remember we had a couple years where we played on Thursday night. I remember in New York, I was like barely playing and was basically a backup tight end. And then National Tight End Day, I caught a touchdown pass, and I was like, oh, yeah, perfect. Like, I scored on National Tight End Day. Well, they reviewed it and overturned it that I stepped out at the 1-inch yard line. So it's just kind of like salt in the wounds that, even on National Tight End Day, they won't give you that call, which it was very borderline if the ball hit the pylon and the foot hit out of bounds at the same time. But anyways, they took the touchdown away from me. So those are some of my National Tight End Day memories. I love that actually, you're telling me that in the time you made the catch and then they reviewed it in between there, that actually went through your head. Like, you're like, I scored on National Tight End Day. Oh, absolutely. Like, I remember we had a great group in New York. It was Evan Ingram, myself, Kay, like we had just killer dudes. And we all talked about, like, somebody's got to get in the end zone today. It's National Tight End Day. And then I think it was our first drive of the game against the Panthers. And I caught like a ball in the flat, play at the pylon. Theoretically, you're not supposed to reach the ball out unless it's fourth down because of the whole fumbling it into the end zone issue. And some coaches, especially New England descendant coaches like the one we had at Joe Judge, do not like when you reach the ball out. I reached that thing out from about the 3-yard line. I was trying to score. And ultimately the ball went down on the 1-inch yard line, and they took the touchdown away from me.
Oh, that hurts.
Those reviews, they just don't work, do they? They don't. They even when they get a second look, they still get it wrong, Kyle.
We talked about it, so I wish after the game I could have been like, could you just give me the touchdown, please? I mean, it's been a rough year, all right?
All right. So you gave the analysis, but who do you think's winning the football game tonight?
Oh man, well, I gotta go with my guys at home. I just think it's more their backs are up against the wall, and as we talked about it, the Niners they got a little breathing room. They've got a little bit of cushion out there in the West. It's a team that's going to be just fine as they get their guys healthy. I think Minnesota is in a much dire situation right now, needing to get a win at home.
Kyle, great stuff, man. We thank you so much for hopping on.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, my friend. Kyle Rudolph with us here on 95.7 The Game, Willard and Dibs, and his National Tight End Day celebrations. Man.